All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Heroes Connect Military to Manufacturing event, where we are starting the 2026 employment conversation with one of our association partners. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Rachel, and I am the director with the Heroes Make America program, and I'll be moderating today's event. Today, we're highlighting SEMI. Although you may not have heard of this manufacturing association or know exactly what a semiconductor is, I guarantee you interact with these products every single day. We are here today to not only connect you as a job seeker with employers who are actively looking to hire, but more importantly, we aim to help our broader military community better understand the manufacturing industry. This is a prime example of a subsector of the industry where we don't think about just how big of an impact they have on our lives because they are so normalized in everything that we do. All right, well, before we jump into today's event, let's review some quick housekeeping items. First, this event is being recorded and will be sent out as part of an event recap email. Please be sure that you stay muted throughout the presentation to minimize background noise. And lastly, although our mics are muted, I still encourage you to be an active participant. Utilize the chat feature during the presentation to drop in questions that you have, and we will answer those questions at the end of the presentation during the Q&A portion. Overall, events like this are really your opportunity to join the discussion and ask questions of these industry leaders who you may not normally have access to. So let's go ahead and practice utilizing the chat feature. Open up the chat and drop in the location where you're seeking employment. All right. Now, while you're doing that, for those of you joining us today who may not be familiar with Heroes Make America, we are a DoD approved SkillBridge and Army Career Skills program that's open to transitioning service members, veterans, and military spouses, reservists, and National Guardsmen. We also provide a variety of certification trainings equipping our students for rewarding careers in the manufacturing and supply chain industry. You can see here our program managers, the locations and virtual options we have, as well as our current training pathways that we offer in manufacturing operations, logistics, industrial systems, as well as airframe and power plant. We additionally offer welding and CNC machining training options in partnership with another training provider, Workshops for Warriors in California. We will drop our contact information into the chat so you are able to connect with us if you do have any questions. And don't forget to tell your battle buddies if you think this program may help them in their post-military career search. The last thing I want to be sure to mention is that in addition to our SkillBridge training offerings, we also host a variety of other virtual events to include these weekly Heroes Connect events, and also in-person and virtual career fairs. We will drop in the upcoming events and registration links in the chat for you to check out. You can see here the employers who are signed up as of today for our virtual career fair on February 13th and our in-person career fair on March 12th at Fort Riley in Kansas. We will most likely have even more that register over the next few weeks, so be sure to mark your calendars and register in advance. Now, let's move on to today's featured presenter, Melinda Gomez, who is Manager of Military Initiatives with the SEMI Foundation. Melinda, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Rachel. Hi, everyone. So as Rachel mentioned, I'm Melinda. SEMI is the global trade association for the semiconductor industry. And before you start Googling what all that means, we're gonna dive right in. Been with the SEMI Foundation, which is our workforce arm, for a couple of years now. I primarily work with companies, kind of helping them develop their military hiring programs, and then sharing, about those opportunities, about the supply chain around the industry, and where opportunities can kind of lie for the broader military community. So if we go to the next slide here. So jumping right in, what are semiconductors? I like this little piece. Rocks we tricked into thinking by putting lightning in them. So basically it's raw material like silicone, gallium, graphite, that are used to conduct electricity. They're typically in like big wafers is what you'll see in the next slide here, and then they're broken up and essentially designed and programmed in a very basic way to do various functions. So if we can go to the next slide here in the video. Thank you.
What career do you want in the future? Do you want to help others? Do you want to create new innovations that people use daily? Semiconductors are the future. They are the silicon microchips that power everything from smartphones to heart monitors to Teslas. You likely have several on you right now. And you can be the innovator who is going to advance this technology to help solve climate change, cancer, or world hunger. What is a semiconductor? A semiconductor is a material that is manipulated to run an electrical charge. Billions of semiconductors are arranged into chips that process data and turn it into information useful for us or our machines to make decisions with, or just entertain us. The world relies on semiconductors for our electronics products. Semiconductor chips are the basis of the technology in our phones, tablets, computers, electric cars, medical devices, manufacturing technologies, video games, virtual reality, artificial intelligence. You are only limited by your imagination. It's all around us, and it makes our lives better. And the semiconductor industry has spots for all sorts of talents and interests. Graphic designers, marketers, data analysts, chemists, machinists, engineers, teachers, video editors, and more. Designing and making semiconductors may seem complicated, but the teams that do it are well coordinated and well trained and get to work with cool tools and machines. They are masters at creating these amazing devices, and it takes communication and collaboration among roles to innovate new technologies. Are you interested in being on a team that's making a difference in the world? Take a look at joining the semiconductor community with SEMI. SEMI is a global industry association involved in the electronics design and manufacturing supply chain. SEMI members focus on innovations in materials, design, equipment, software, devices, and services that enable smarter, faster, more powerful, and more affordable electronic products. Our industry is looking for people to use their brilliance in art, coding, engineering, marketing, writing, mathematics, and teamwork to create solutions for some of the biggest challenges using semiconductor technology. Visit the link to learn more about jobs in our industry.
Well, now that I've sold you on joining the industry, because basically they need a little bit of everything right now. This just kind of, this slide backs us up a little bit and all of the different initiatives within the SIMI Foundation. I mentioned my role is primarily around the military community. I also work on our mentoring programs and our outreach campaigns and our career exploration site that I'll share with you a little bit later. But there's, other teammates that are working on K-12 programming. So they're going into schools and hosting robotics camps. And we have some online training programs for people maybe in automotive industry or in aviation that are interested in kind of translating those skills over. And then of course we do a lot of events. So SEMI as the trade association side, they do these huge, large conventions every year around the world. Like every continent has at least one where all the different companies that comprise the supply chain come together and share their new technologies and showcase what's happening and where the industry is heading. In the last several years, especially since COVID and some of those supply chain issues that I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute, it's really driving a whole lot of growth, especially here in the US with the new legislation and investments and advancements in technology in general. We can go to the next slide, please. So this just kind of shows a little bit of what's triggering a lot of this growth. I mentioned it a minute ago that, 2020 with the pandemic, that really showcased how the supply chain was impacted when something is happening in specific geographic areas or global ones. But as you see the different lines here, it kind of showcases the different eras we've had in technology. So when, PC sales started kicking off, we saw, a little increase in the industry of new companies coming online. of suppliers for various components of those, so it's driving that growth. And then when the first BlackBerry or smartphone was introduced in the early 2000s, that kind of gave us a decent boost, all these, little things. But starting back in 2018, we had multiple things kind of come into play. So we have um, AI revolution is really driving a whole lot of it. Machine learning and robotics and smart medical device advancements, quantum computing, um, all the different pieces that are happening in conjunction with the supply chain issues is causing a whole lot of investment, and we're expecting this industry to reach 1 trillion by 2030. And honestly, it might go a little bit over that with other countries now competing with us to attract those companies to go out there. Can we go to the next slide, please? Can we advance it two more times, or no, just one more time, I think. Oh, I lied. It is two more. There we go. Thank you. I keep trying to remove that and then I forget every time. So this is that supply chain that I'm referring to, and all of the different kind of sub pieces that make it up. So we like to think of this in four main focus areas of technology. So we have kind of the smart data, AI. Those are the primary electronic systems involved in smart data and AI, smart manufacturing, and the newest, version of the Industrial Revolution and adaptive manufacturing and 3D printing and all of the things that's enabled manufacturing to do. Smart mobility up in the top right. We now have, smart autonomous vehicles and electric vehicles and all of the pieces that are in every car these days. There's more chips than, I think anyone ever imagined would be in one vehicle. I think I read something, there's close to 50,000 microchips in one car that has any kind of autonomous capabilities within it. And then smart med tech. So I'm in San Diego. There's so much cool stuff happening out here in the med tech industry, that's changing, lives. It's not even like lifespan increasing, it's health that's increasing, and some of the cool biometrics that are coming out from that. So those, four components are within the final stage, right, of the supply chain, the actual systems that you touch and you see. And those are the brands that you're probably most familiar with within this graphic. But as you kind of go in the circles, we're going to start in the center. So in the center is semi, because, that's what associations kind of see themselves as kind of the ones that pull all of the supply chain together, help sharing. We have like standards development. We do these conferences around all of the different types of materials and equipment, manufacturers, and all that kind of stuff. And the first ring of the actual supply chain is design and automation. So these are the companies that are involved with identifying and creating purposes for chips or adapting chips that are already out there. And then those, designs get brought into the materials and subcomponents. So that will be the companies that are setting up the ventilation systems in these manufacturing facilities, the chemicals that are being utilized, making sure, the vacuum systems are in place. Some of that can be considered the materials or the actual raw materials. So that could be silicone, even the water filtration systems that are in those. The third ring there is equipment, assembly and test services. Some of these companies you may be a little bit familiar with because they'll make equipment for manufacturing of semiconductors. They also are likely equipment manufacturers for other industries. But these are arguably one of the heaviest chunks of, of money of these equipment manufacturers because they, will make a product probably that only that one company will make. And so you walk into a fab or a manufacturing facility of chips, and you're going to see a conglomeration of all these different equipment pieces, and you'll see all these different brands. They're all housed within the actual semiconductor facilities, which is that next ring out there. So you might recognize most, at least half of those, right? So you know Intel probably are getting familiar with Micron if you're following the news. They got a lot of stuff happening. NVIDIA. These are all the companies that are making, whether it's memory chips, they could be making integrated circuit chips, they could be making all the different types of AI chips, everything that we're using in our final ring there, the electronic systems. So those are the ones that the final products, as I mentioned, that you're going to be most familiar with, most interacting with. But if you were to open that up, you would see, little pieces of all these companies. And obviously, these aren't all the companies. These are just going to be kind of the bigger ones that are around. And hopefully, as you're looking at these brands and these names, you're like, oh, you know what? I do see these around, and I just didn't realize that they were in my area. So, if there aren't any questions on this, give everybody a second. Can move into kind of the investments that are happening right now. Okay, cool. We can go to the next one. Feel free to raise your hand or interrupt or whatever if there's something I can elaborate on. So the Chips and Science Act was passed back in 2022 in response to the COVID-19 chip shortage and supply chain issues that we were all running into, right? It was very difficult to find a new car. Even phones weren't being, rolled out as quickly. And on top of that, all of the different geopolitical shifts that were happening around that time really sparked a concern and reflection that, wait a minute, how is it that we're okay with 98% of the world's chips that we rely on so heavily are made outside the US? And about 94% of them were being made in Taiwan specifically. And so there was a big push and a whole lot of money proposed to launch the Chips and Science Act, which was a big request for proposals from different companies who would expand or bring their operations here to the US. And if we go to the next slide here, and there is a link on the bottom. So it's semiconductors.org. That's where you can find that interactive map. But on here, these are where all of those investments have been laid out so far. So since 2020, some states were already starting to throw some investment money towards companies. These are where all of those different operations are expanding. And so I know for many of you, if you're getting ready to leave the military or if you're, kind of weighing out where there's going to be a lot of job growth and opportunity, these are kind of where those big pieces are happening right now as a result of the Chips and Science Act on top of, for instance, Arizona, yes, some of those companies probably receive some CHIPS money incentives, and it's like tax rebates and things that can help them in their expansions. The state of Arizona was also like, hey, you come out here, we'll help you streamline this, and this, and and we'll make it nice and easy for you if you come out here. And there's a whole lot of that happening around the country that kind of helped settle where some of this is happening. So in Arizona, for instance, they were able to entice, I'll say, TSMC, which is the world's largest chip maker, to set up their very first manufacturing facility outside of Taiwan. And there's actually going to be several of them out there now, and they're hiring, 1,000 people in a given month, as they're finally coming online here pretty soon and making chips here in the US. So that's kind of what this is representing. If you go to that website there, and I'll try to pull a link to drop it in the chat if you want to play with it. But if you hover over these bubbles, it'll tell you exactly which company it is. how much money is being invested in that area. And for some of it, it even says like it's going to result in this many jobs. So it's kind of a cool, oh, thank you, Rachel. It's kind of a cool graphic to kind of play with and just kind of see, what's happening, where are they at, and then get a better sense of what's really going on. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so that is all the background information I wanted to share around the industry, kind of where we're at, why this is such a big moment for it to set things up. Are there any questions around where opportunity might be, what's happening before we get into our career exploration site?
Don't be afraid to come off of mute, raise that hand, drop those questions. If you don't want to unmute yourself, I get it. You can be a passive question asker and drop those questions in the chat, and I'll be happy to ask those questions of Melinda for you.
No dumb questions. I just want to make it a little bit more interactive if you all want that. If you just want me to talk at you and share this, I'm fine with that too.
I was like, if not, I've got some questions when we get to the Q&A, and maybe that'll motivate them
Yeah,
to ask
no
some questions
worries.
as
No
well.
worries. I just didn't want to dive into this part first, but okay, we'll go on. So we at the Semi Foundation, we started really looking at, okay, all this investments coming in, all this money, all these operations are expanding, all this stuff is really awesome. And it's going to result in, 150,000 jobs being needed in the US in the next 6 years or so as they all come online. With the biggest kind of pinch being, wait a minute, we haven't been doing this manufacturing here in the US. Do we even have a trained workforce to be able to do it? And so as we really started convening employers and government officials and looking at what was happening around the world in areas where they were already, doing a lot of this work and looking at what was necessary, we started building out, okay, well, where are there going to be needs for short-term training programs? Where are we going to need apprenticeships? Where are we going to need certifications? Where do we really need to increase the number of engineering students? Like all these funny, things that I don't know, I wouldn't have thought of initially, but as we started pulling that onion back and trying to make sure that we set ourselves up for a success, a big component of it was, okay, well, can we create something that job seekers, students, veterans can go to and see, where their skills from previous employment or education or even just interests, how can that align to careers in this industry? And so we had another version that recently had a bit of a AI facelift, and we're calling it Chip Path. And oh, thank you, Renee. I see you through both, yeah, the careers.semi.org. If you go to that site, it's going to redirect you to Chip Path automatically. So if you see the URL change, don't stress about it. And if you go to the next slide here, I'm going to kind of walk you guys through some of the main features on it. So it has a resume builder. So it has, AI resume tailoring. It has like resume feedback loop. So if you have a resume in there, you can compare it to the AI version, reject or accept certain pieces of it. But then also when you go to potentially apply for a job in there, you can have it compare that job description to the resume on file, and it'll let you know if there's something that needs to be adjusted. That feature is actually being rolled out like today. So if you go on the site and you're like, oh, I don't see that piece, refresh, this afternoon or tomorrow morning, it will be there. That's a super exciting piece that we've been working on. Career matching and mapping. So there's about 150 different career pathways within this industry that are outlined in there. So if you were to upload, say, your general resume that you have been building throughout your transition or even for your past roles, you can upload that in there. It's going to pull apart your skills, kind of chart what kind of level within your career path you're at right now. and make recommendations on careers you could explore. There's a whole bunch of training and education in there, whether it's short-term Coursera classes, um, a Heroes Make America program that could be a good fit for you. All of that kind of stuff is in there that you can save and explore further. There's resources, and resources could be, how do I find decent childcare in my area? Or I need, virtual interview prep. All the different pieces that could affect your career have some resources in there, and I'm actively working on increasing that because I know there's plenty more to be added. And then the best part, of course, is the actual job board. So that is pulling live openings from SEMI members. So we're that trade association piece of us has about 4,000 members globally. There's about 1,500 with US operations. So it's pulling from all of those direct job boards. We go to the next slide here. I want to say we have 110,000-ish live postings right now in there. So that's kind of what it looks like when you log in. It walks you through building the career profile and all that fun stuff, all the training programs that are listed that you can kind of save and go back. You can track your applications if you want to, and kind of have follow-up pieces in there. The next big piece of this is going to be when we launch it to employers. So this has only been live for about 2 months. So we're trying to make sure we have enough candidates in there. So when we add employers in, there's candidates they can reach out to. So they'll gain access here in March so that they can go in and search for candidates, reach out directly, invite people to apply, things like that. Can we go to the next slide here? Is that the video? Oh, no, one more. This just kind of shows you what the interface looks like, the types of trainings and roles. It also, when you put in your zip code, or your address in the system, and it has careers recommended for you, it'll tell you the level of demands in your area. So, just because something is in high demand in Arizona, maybe it's not in Missouri. So it's going to show you where you have a great skill match, but it's also, something that's in high in demand and also has the average salaries for that area pulled from Lightcast, if anyone's curious. And then kind of guides through, like, if you selected the career manufacturing technician, you're like, this feels like a good fit for me. It's going to tell you if there are training programs in your area that can help you get into that if you aren't quite there yet. And then the companies that are hiring for that directly. Next slide. That was the video. There we go. Thank you. Complete. That was everything I already yapped about. Okay. Huh. That's good. That music was starting to get to me. Okay. So that's just kind of a quick walkthrough of what, the interaction capabilities and stuff are within the site. It did remind me a lot of this stuff is based around skills. And if you were to open a position and it had all the skills highlighted as to the cross section of what you have versus what's needed, you can add skills to your profile at any time, and then when you go into that career passport component you can adjust, like if it says based on your resume you have entry level um, automotive mechanic something, but you're like, actually, I'm a little bit more advanced. So you can adjust your skills, add other things, super reactive. And as on the demo, when I selected one of the skills on the jobs, it completely updated the job recommendations that were put out there for me. So it's very fun. I hope you want to get into it. So there's a QR code on here if you'd like to create an account on there. It's just kind of going to walk you through exactly what it said on there. And then if any of you would like to go over one-on-one, any of your goals, connections to any of the companies that we work with, I'm happy to sit down and go through things with you, make any referrals, any recommendations, things like that. Do that quite a bit. There's a lot of companies that are growing their programs around military attraction and recruitment and stuff. So it's kind of a cool time to get in, and obviously a whole lot of growth happening. So
And Melinda, just to confirm, in order to access those features like the job board and things like that, you actually have to create an account. You can't just access some of those features
you
without an account.
do,
Okay.
yeah, I know. I tried getting them to remove that, but yeah, I mean, between, this room, I know this is being recorded, but maybe no one will notice. Um, I play around with it with a fake email address. Like it's not necessarily gonna verify that. So you can kind of just throw in something and dig around and see if it's something. Obviously, you're not going to get the emails with hot job alerts and things that are coming online. But if you're like, you know what, I really don't need more spam email coming in, but I'd like to check things out, feel free to do what you got to do.
Understood, understood. But those email notifications with the hot jobs, if you set those parameters, like when I talk with people about create like job searching, right? Like
Yeah,
platforms like that can do some of the work for you. Like if you say I'm interested in these types of
absolutely.
jobs in this location, then it's going to
You
pull and
save it.
scrub and send those
Hmm.
to you. So then you have a curated list of job opportunities that already align with what you're looking for and where you're going back to. It makes applying for jobs a lot easier. So don't
Absolutely.
be afraid to sign up for
Yes.
resources like this as well. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm gonna
I always
flip to
do
the
it as
next slide.
demos, so it is so confused about what I want to do with my life. It's pretty funny.
Yes. Well, while I wanted to go ahead and make sure we threw your information up there, Melinda,
Thank
while we were
you.
kind of in the Q&A session. I don't currently see any questions in the chat, but I definitely have
Okay.
some myself, and maybe it'll get some of the gears turning for the folks that are on the call. So I just want to remind everybody, like, this is a wonderful opportunity to ask some of those candid questions of Melinda. I even say it doesn't necessarily have to be specific to the association, but you could ask questions around, you know,
Yeah.
preparation and interviewing and things like that. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions here, like I said, to kind of get the gears turning. So, Melinda, from your perspective, what qualities do military members bring that make them particularly strong candidates for the semiconductor and manufacturing roles?
Yeah. So usually when I do these, and you all are going to have to go and watch the recordings from the last couple. Normally I have some awesome veterans with me who are able to share, a little bit about what drew them into the industry and why they continue to recruit other veterans. And they always tell me it's kind of simple-ish things, right? It's the ability to follow standing operating procedures, safety protocols, your leadership skills in stressful situations. While most fabs hopefully are not super stressful, being able to come in and lead a team is really important. Communication skills is super important. You're very clear with instructions and are able to kind of get everyone on the same page. Um, Mechanically, or more the mechanical side of things is also really important for those of you who have had any kind of engineering background or electronic systems or aviation, heavy equipment, all of those kinds of things. It's funny how much of that can translate into the types of machines and equipments and operations that are happening. Um, yeah, there's a lot of things. Everything.
So what I'm hearing is make sure, like, pick those, you hear those keywords, guys, as Melinda's talking, those things we want to make sure that we are emphasizing on our resume as well, right? So she said safety. She's talked about standard operating procedures. She talked about communication, leadership. So those are keywords that we should be highlighting on our resume to flag that experience and those skill sets that the industry is really looking for. I did see a question pop into the chat, and it says, are there any specific military jobs or MOCs that you can think of that have high applicability to this kind of learning and career opportunities? So, do
Yeah.
have you guys ever mapped out, like, are there specific military occupations that do really well in the industry, or?
We have mapped them out. I used to have a slide that did that, but I removed it because I felt like it was too limiting. I mean, there are certain jobs that certain MOSs work really well in. For instance, when you look at the overall like ventilation, HVAC systems, the whole like chain of, moving of materials, maybe nukes and stuff tend to do really well with things like that. Any kind of mechanical, like I mentioned, like electronics, people, even like radio, aviation, mechanics, all that kind of stuff tends to do really well, for like technician type roles. And I know technician can be a bad word for some of you, and you're like, I don't want to be a tech. These are not your average technicians. They're paid quite well. That's one of the biggest jobs that's needed. It's called field service technician or field service engineer. Those are the people who go on site to some of those semiconductor or electronic system companies and work on their machines because, I told you those manufacturing facilities have machines from all different companies. And so they need, those people who know how their machines are supposed to work to come in and do maintenance on them and check them out and stuff like that. So as there's so much growth and those machines are being used in more and more facilities, they obviously need more engineers to be able to go in and upgrade them or update them and do that kind of stuff. Um,
Well, and I,
yeah,
I, I think there's a positive to you saying that you were actually removed that slide, because I think sometimes employers get so hyper focused on military occupations that do
certain
align
things.
that they
Yeah,
target out other potential candidates, right? Because,
absolutely.
especially in the military, you could be in a variety of MOCs and done things that would actually align with this
Yeah,
industry. Or maybe you have done nothing that aligns with the semiconductor industry, but that doesn't mean you're not a right fit for some of those opportunities that exist out
yeah,
there because there's so many. You talked about 150,000 jobs, right? So there's a
yeah,
big pool of opportunity, and especially as we saw the map and we look at growth and expansion, right? That means continuation of more jobs being added.
yeah,
And I think
absolutely.
the other benefit to that too is when we see growth within manufacturing, we see companies building new facilities, it also often means an opportunity to upskill as well. So they're willing to bring
100%.
folks in who are maybe, don't align perfectly with the role, but who have the aptitude and the ability. And they'll say, hey, we'll train you for these positions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And this industry is so funny with like their IP, their intellectual property, that at first it was very difficult, even for them sitting around a table with like a school to tell the school how they do something so that the school can make a training program for it. Like they were like, no, no, we'll just teach them when they get here. We just need them to understand the overall, what the industry does, what are the components that go into things, and then we'll teach them how to do, what we do. And so it's kind of funny. There's no one who's manufacturing chips in the military or, in most other industries, but having a little bit of awareness of what, that process looks like, how are chips actually made, can be super helpful. And there's lots of free videos and even like certificates that you can get that are listed on that Chip Pass site, or I can even email some out if you're interested, just to kind of give you a little bit of that background knowledge. So if you're talking to a company, it shows that you've done your homework. You might not actually know how to do what, the job is requiring, but you understand how it fits into the broader system and what that would look like for you to get into it. There's also a lot of programs popping up that are like 2-week boot camp programs that can just kind of get you up to speed on certain aspects of it. There's also programs specific for veterans that are out there. Like Penn State has a 12-week program that's completely free. They're doing it in 9 locations now at various universities. And they give you a stipend because they realize, you're coming to this program part-time while we get you upskilled. We're going to give you some money. And then we'll give you a little bit more when you graduate, and we're going to help you get a job and all that. This is a really unique time to really have the ability to jump in and just kind of see if it's something worthwhile for you. And then once you get in, there's a lot of opportunity. And some people that I meet with are like, well, if robotics is such a big thing and automation is such a big thing, isn't that going to take the place of what a lot of these roles are? And I would say not for a long time for most of this stuff, because it's so sensitive that it really does need a person to be overseeing it. So while robotics might be the ones, actually etching the chips, and adding the layers and things like that, it's a person doing the programming. It's a person who's, troubleshooting and going through, monitoring the whole, system within the fab and clean rooms and things like that. So, a little
I even
bit,
think about
but not so much. I'm
I
sorry, what
even
was
tell
that?
people, I even tell people when they get when the conversation pops up around automation and robotics and the
Mhm.
elimination of jobs. I think automation and robotics, they take away some of those repetitive tasks, right? So things that we saw historically that led to injuries and things like that. So for me, when I think about it, it doesn't necessarily take away jobs, but it changes the nature of a position. So you're looking at much more technical, upskilled roles and not so much like I've been inside a facility where it used to be people were stacking like pallets of water, right? And now you have a palletizer that has automated that process. So instead of, me starting that job at 25 and by the time I'm 50 having all these back issues, right? Now I can do things that are more critical, right? That require more thinking versus just a physical manual labor side of the house. So more technical roles. And I wanted to flag, I don't know if we have any military spouses on the call, but I know, having been a military spouse myself, one of the things I'm always thinking about when I think about a career path in an industry is job portability, right? And how resilient are the
100%.
careers within the industry. And I think about that map that we were looking at earlier and how many different opportunities there are nationwide. And so, even to the veterans or transitioning service members that are on the call, if you're looking at relocating somewhere, just about everywhere, there's an opportunity that is probably going to get you closer to home, depending on where you're currently
Yeah.
at. So I wanted to just to bring maybe I can bring the map back up just so that folks can see that because I think it highlights just the diversity of opportunity um,
Yeah.
here,
And these are
right?
just the ones that are expanding. Like there's already
Exactly.
a
Right.
ton
There's
of
way
stuff
more than
already
this
happening. Yeah. Like San
already out
Diego, for
there.
instance, I'm sure that yellow dot there is probably that might be in LA. It's probably ASML. I think they're expanding out here. But we also have Qualcomm. We also have Western Digital. We also have Microchip and EMD and Thermo Fisher and like there's
Yeah.
it's just a small
I
piece
mean,
of
like
what's
just thinking
happening.
about the graph of all of the companies, right? So
Yeah,
taking a look at this, I can only imagine if all of these companies operate within the
right.
semiconductor sector, even
Yeah,
if each of them only has one US location, that's a ton of opportunity. But we know
right.
many of them are multi-location
Multiple,
companies in the US. So
certainly.
I think, and I know somebody had asked about it earlier. We will send the recording out so you can see these companies again. But once again, hopping into ChipPath is another way to get in there and see jobs for a lot of these
Yeah. And
employers
I
as
do want to
well.
mention, so semi being, with the whole industry,
Hmm.
many of the companies that we're working with also have other sectors. And so we didn't really have a way to only pull the semiconductor sectors from those
Hmm.
job openings. So for instance, Amazon being on here, it's going to show other types of jobs at
Yeah,
Amazon. I work a lot with Northrop Grumman and with Raytheon Technology and all of those, jobs as well, because they're also making chips, for defense. So there's a whole lot of cross sectionality happening across the supply chain.
absolutely. So let me take a look at
Yeah.
my questions again here. So, we've talked a little bit about maybe the different types of roles, how there's such a wide variety of opportunity. But for, someone transitioning out of the military, one of the things I hear a lot is, what does a long-term career path in the industry look like? Because I think that's, they're looking for their next mission, right? They want to land with a company
Yeah.
where they can grow and expand. So, what does, potentially long-term career path look like in semiconductors?
Yeah, yeah. So there's so many different pathways. And on Chip Path, it kind of outlines like if you come into this role, these are potential next steps that you could grow into, which I think is really helpful so that you can kind of really map out, okay, if I'm here, but I already possess most of these skills, probably going to be able to grow into something else relatively soon. What does that look like? There's plenty of opportunities. So, for instance, if you started out, I'll go back to the field service technician role. So, if you start
Hmm.
out there, that's kind of considered mid-entry-ish, like you're going to need some kind of mechanical-ish training or background. So, if you come in there and then you can grow into a field service engineer, if you're doing well there and you're like, you know what, this is cool, but I would rather oversee a fleet of doing this. I want to be more field service manager. I'm going to go above that. And then maybe you grow from there to more of the facility manager because now you're over the facility that's either making all of those equipments or equipment parts, or you're overseeing a team of people doing things like that. And then you could go over into more account management. Like you could pivot off and be a relationship manager with the different companies that you're selling that product to. Or if you wanted to step back and grow into more of the engineering piece and you want to get on the manufacturing side as opposed to the maintenance side of things, there's a lot of companies that are doing internal training, apprenticeships, even like creating their own certifications. We're helping a lot of them do that so that people kind of hit certain pieces as they're growing through their career to make them more qualified for other roles. Um,
And I know we've talked a
yeah,
lot about um, like manufacturing and technician. But for those who maybe
Hmm.
came in late, we did have a video at the beginning. There's all those other support
So
roles and
many.
structures as well. So, everything from the
Yeah.
logistics side to engineering to research and development. And then as you start to look organizationally for a company, there's your HR and your marketing and your finance and all of those roles. So while we know, inside the facilities is really high demand,
These are more
right?
than new. Yeah.
We gotta make it in order
Yeah.
for all of those other jobs to exist, just knowing that all of those other support structures exist as well.
Yeah.
I did see a question in the chat from Antoine, and I may need him to provide us some clarification or maybe come off of mute. But he said, what are membership opportunities with SEMI as a student? So I don't know if he wants to kind of
Hmm.
clarify his question. Um,
I'm
Yes,
thinking it's, go
oh,
I
ahead.
there he
like
is.
to. I like to. So I did some research on semi. I get your newsletter often. I did
Awesome.
some training for veterans in the semi processing technician program at Georgia Tech and Penn State University. Um,
Awesome.
Georgia Piedmont Technical College. It was a 3-month program, and I went into the clean rooms and learned everything from photolithography to wafer manufacturing to all the measurements and things like that. And then from there, I
Awesome.
went to a program that taught mechatronics because there were the information I received that were saying that they wanted not just the processors to know about the processes, but they needed folks to work on the machine. So I took the initiative to learn about mechatronics. And
Yeah.
then from there, I joined the Hero Make America program in the Manufacturing Institute and took the production technician program. So somebody
Awesome.
with a background as such as mine, I hold an MBA in project management. Where would I fit in the ecosystem of China, at least enter into the semiconductor industry um, through SEMI's initiative as a student.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a couple directions you could take that in, depending on whether you wanted to go more the process side or the maintenance side, like which aspect you wanted to really lean into a little bit more, or if you wanted to actually do the manufacturing end. But within the chip path platform that we have, you could either add in those trainings individually or upload a resume that had something to reflective of that, and it could show you your options and you could see, which one might have a higher demand in your area, which one might have more growth, potential within the next couple of years and be able to choose and then, go through the openings and stuff in your region.
Yeah, Antoine, I
Okay,
don't
thank you.
know. I don't know if you were on during that portion of the presentation, but we'll
It
send out the
wasn't.
video recap. But Semi just launched their new chip path platform.
I
Too many
know.
P's
Believe
there.
me, I do it all the
Uh,
time.
Happy to hear
but
that. I'm happy and excited to hear that.
yeah, so it's really cool. You could go in, build an account, upload your resume, and then there's a bunch of features in there where you could identify pathways that you want to go down, and there's jobs in there that you could apply for. So I think that that's going to be a critically important piece for you. So when you get in there, and Melinda just dropped the link in the chat for you again, as well. But I would definitely hop into that platform. And then, of course, you'll have Melinda's contact information as well. So once you're in there and engaging those employers,
Yeah.
and let Heroes know too, if you apply for jobs in there, we're happy to help follow up with Melinda and her team as you explore those opportunities as well. So
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Rachel and Melinda. I really appreciate y'all.
Of
you're
course.
welcome. Well, I'm
And then
going
I
to, I
did
know we're,
drop the link in of the program that he mentioned out at Piedmont and Georgia Tech. And you can see that the other locations and stuff that they're offering that program. That's the 12-week one I mentioned earlier too.
oh, perfect. Awesome. Well, I know we're coming up on the end of our time, so I wanted to just see if anybody else had any final questions that they wanted to drop in the chat. Um, if not, we'll kind of wrap things up here. All right. Well, with that, I want to take a moment to just thank Melinda for her time today. I always love hopping on the calls with Simi and learning about the industry because it's not just one company, right? There's just it's this huge ecosystem of employers that are doing really amazing work. So, Melinda, thank you for jumping on with us today, and we really appreciate Simi's support of the Heroes Make America program. And with that, I'm going to just flag a couple of things on our slide here. So once again, I want to reinforce, we want you to explore Semi's website. Take a look at that chip path. Take a look at those opportunities that are in there, the employers, the opportunities to continue to upskill as well. Make sure if you're not already that you're following Heroes Make America on LinkedIn. We're also on Facebook and we share all of our information out there. Connect, right? So for all of you, make sure that you're connecting with us on LinkedIn, connect with Melinda on LinkedIn. You never know who we may be connected to and what opportunities we'll share on those platforms. And then, of course, we do have our next Heroes Connect on Wednesday, February 4th. It will be with another association partner. So we really love to highlight our associations. So make sure that you get registered for that event as well. So I know this weekend sounds like we're going to have some crazy weather if you're Midwest to East Coast. So I hope everybody stays safe. And once again, Melinda, I just want to once again say thank you so much for being on with us today.
Of course. Thank you all for having me.
All right. Have a
See you
wonderful
soon.
week, everyone.
Bye.